A little bit of an up and down weekend for your Pittsburgh Penguins, but as they enter the second to last week of the regular season, they are in a playoff spot. To start today's episode, we're going to dive into Kris Letang's 1,000th game and the ceremony that went on before it and how the Penguins were able to win that game. We'll also touch on the Bruins game a little bit later and how the Penguins lost a big opportunity there. And then we'll also look at the week ahead as we are now in crunch time for the final 5 games of the regular season. That's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. So Penguins, again, up and down weekend, but let's start with the very big positive. Penguins 4, Flyers 2, get back in the playoff spot. And Kris Letang, the man of the hour, gets honored on Sunday for his 1,000th game. It looked like a lot of times he was not going to get there throughout his career. I mean, 2 strokes, one just this season. The other one happened several years ago when doctors discovered that he had a hole in his heart. He's battled a lot of migraines as well. I actually just learned over the weekend that, one of his best friends, died several years ago. One of his best friends from his childhood obviously just had his dad pass away. Multiple concussions, the herniated disc, the fact that he has gone through all of that and he is still playing today just goes to show, the kind of person and just his character and all that stuff. I have so many great Kris Letang memories to, talk about. I mean, my top one obviously is the overtime goal, Game 3. It's that might be a little weird to some, but because it was part of my big childhood, the Game 3 goal against the Washington Capitals is my favorite because Kris Letang memory just edges out what happened in 2016. Penguins need a spark in that series. You're down 2-0. That whole arena is holding their breath because the Capitals came back to tie it. Yeah, and Penguins, when they needed a hero, Letang scores. They got a fortunate bounce, but the arena went crazy. He had one heck of a celebration with his fist pump. I knew right then that he was going to be something special for this team. 2016, right after that, his shift in Game 6 where he just took over the spinorama, going behind the net. Sid gets him the puck, goes in on Martin Jones. That's the game-winning goal right there. And it came right after the Sharks came back to tie it at 1-1 just a couple minutes later. He was on another level during that series, and that was the best hockey I've ever seen him play. He was a top 3 defenseman on the planet, and he compares to, any great franchise defenseman. I think I saw Ryan Wilson from Hockey Buzz post, some charts just looking at how he compares to Erik Karlsson, Victor Hedman, John Carlson, Drew Doughty, all these other guys. Letang stacks up very well to all of them. He is one of the most underrated players of this era. He's also a very underappreciated player among the Penguins fan base. He is the best defenseman in this franchise's history. I know some people may not like that just because we'll call Coffey, but Coffey was only here for a few seasons. In terms of being a franchise defenseman, it's Letang. It's not even close. He has every record among defensemen in this franchise's history. And I am so glad that he got his flowers. Seeing Alex come out there and read the lineup, his wife, Catherine, his daughter, Victoria, he definitely got a little bit teary-eyed. Seeing Gino say, I love you to him, and then seeing Sid say, I'm sure Claude is smiling down on you right now. It's hard not to get emotional off that. I covered the team, and I was starting to get a little water coming out of my eyes. It was that awesome. And the Penguins, even though they had that special night for him, they had a hockey game to win. That, was kind of overshadowing it, and the Penguins were able to get the result that they wanted, a 4-2 final. And speaking of Letang, I thought he played very well in that game. I think he's played a lot better, ever since coming back from that stroke, and then ever since also coming back from that leg injury after his father passed away earlier this season. They got the result they needed to have, And with 5 games left, they are in a playoff spot now. Although the Penguins overall outside the first 5-10 minutes played relatively good in this game. Flyers kind of took it to them a little bit early on in the third period. And, the Penguins, that's just how they are this year, people. We are 77 games into an 82-game season. The season ends for the Penguins in 10 days from now. Even if they're defending a 3-0 lead in the third period, they're going to make it interesting. They don't know how to win in blowout fashion. It is very similar to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It very much is. So, you knew the Flyers were going to make a comeback attempt with that. And, they cut it to 3-2 with 2:29 left. They pulled the goalie again, but Ryan Poehling was able to seal with an empty net goal. Really nice to see Rickard. Rakell get 2 on the board. He's now, I believe, 27 goals for the season. I really hope he hits 30. And Bryan Rust gets another goal. He's really starting to turn it on these last couple of games, 3 goals in 2 games. And that's the thing with Rust. He can be, down bad and, and down and out and all that other stuff. But whenever he starts to click, he can go on any of these, runs where he's scoring, 7 goals in 7 games, something like that. He has 3 goals in 2 games now. It's nice to see him put the puck in the back of the net more just because he's had a little bit of a miserable season. Overall, again, I thought the Penguins played relatively well. And his natural stat trick, it looks like might be down right now. So that's kind of annoying. Casey DeSmith started in goal. I was going to just double check the stats from everything, but the Penguins, they did lead in expected goals. They led in high danger chances and all that. Casey DeSmith got the start in net. Really good stuff from him. I can't complain about that start. And it's why, this kind of start makes it so maddening with him because he can be this good when he wants to. It's just he'll have other games, like, for example, against the Red Wings, where it's like, what goalie is this? Like, is this an ECHL goalie playing? But he made a couple of 10 bell saves, one on Konechny where it looked like the puck might have crossed the line. It did not. He was on his game in this one. And that's honestly 2 games in a row now against the Flyers that he has really stood on his ground. I'm not sure how many more games he's going to start the rest of the season just because there's only 5 games left. The Penguins are done with back-to-backs. I think they're going to try to ride Jari as much as they can. But, I think, at least from this game, Casey DeSmith has maybe earned at least one more start for the rest of the season. Maybe once they clinch their playoff spot, they might give him a start. But right now, it's looking more likely, I think, that Tristan's probably going to get the net, especially in these 2 games this week against Minnesota and New Jersey. But again, liked how Casey played, made some big saves when the Penguins needed him to, and they were able to get 2.7. I also thought Mikael Granlund a little bit better. I don't know if you all noticed that diving play that he had towards the late stages of regulation. I know Mike Sullivan. I kind of joke that he uses him in a Patrice Bergeron type role. He does. It's very weird still. I don't get it. Still, he made a good play on the puck. He was able to poke it past Tony DeAngelo, and then Poehling is able to score on the empty net from about 10, 15 feet out. Is able to end the game. Really like that defensive play there. Sidney Crosby, he gets an assist. He's been a little cold as of late. I do think that's about to change, though. I think these final 5 games, he's going to really try to lead this team to a playoff spot. And finally, summing up my miscellaneous thoughts on this game, Evgeny Malkin. Basically 20 penalty minutes in this game. Dan O'Rourke had it out for him or something. He must have said something to Dan to piss him off because he got a game misconduct in the third period after taking 3 minor penalties. That was the typical Genome game right there where, he just can't get out of his own way. He has some of those sometimes. Now, it was honestly more funny than it was sad. I wouldn't be laughing if they weren't up 3-0 at the time. If this was like, a 2-2 game or something like that, or even a 2-1 game, Penguins were leading, I probably would have been a little more upset, but it was 3-0 in the result. Even though the Flyers are bad, I felt like they weren't going to blow a 3-goal lead to the Flyers. So I honestly did find that a little bit funny. But overall, they took care of business. You were expected to beat a team like the Flyers. They sweep the season series for the first time since 2018, and then we're now going to the final 5 games with a 1-point lead over the Florida Panthers for the final playoff spot, 5-point lead over the Sabres, but they have 2 games in hand, and they are just 1 point behind the Islanders with a game in hand. That game will be tomorrow against the Devils. We'll preview that game a little later on. The Penguins are in control of their own destiny. And coming up after this commercial break, I'm going to tell you why they could be in a better spot right now had they would have gotten at least a small result from that game on Saturday against the Bruins. But before that, we do have to discuss a new sponsor here, eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that part will fit. Or you get your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, we're back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow this show's Twitter at LORSO Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So, Penguins Bruins happened on Saturday. I'll spend a little bit of time on that as you all see my wonderful flow here that I'm probably going to have to get cut here pretty shortly. And of course, wearing the Mandalorian shirt today, as it is another Mando week for 3 more weeks. So Penguins Bruins, they fall 4-3 in a game where people didn't like that I said this. I thought the Penguins deserved a little bit of a better fate. You can disagree with me on that, but when you come back not once, not twice, but 3 times to tie the game in, against the best team in the league, even though they don't have much to play for, I think you at least deserve a little bit of a better fate, especially when it comes to how that game ended. At first, I really went at Kris Letang, and I still don't really like the play that he made. I thought he rushed it a little bit. But that 4th goal that the Bruins scored was caused by the officials. And when I say that, I don't mean just a bad call. It wasn't a bad call or anything. The ref just did not get out of the way along the boards. The puck hit the ref, went right to a Bruins skater who gives it to Pastrnak, one-timer, gets him the hat trick. He's almost to 60 goals this season. He is not going to miss any of those. And it's also funny that, every time the Bruins needed a big goal, David Pastrnak was on the ice. It's just very, very annoying. But that is what I'm saying when I think the Penguins deserved a better fate. They should have gotten at least a point out of that game. You want the 50-50 chance in overtime. If they would have gotten at least a point right there, they would be 2 points up on the Panthers right now, and they'd be tied with the Islanders with a game in hand on them. They would be in the first wildcard spot right now. And again, this just goes back to how bad this team has been in late game situations this year. That's 4 times in the last month, basically, that they've let a tied game either halfway through the 3rd period or late in the 3rd period slip out of their grasp and not get any points out of it. The Ottawa game, Chad takes that stupid penalty with 3 minutes left. There's one. The Detroit game, Bryan takes a really stupid penalty with 3:48 left. This game, where you cough up a tie game with 2:28 left because you get the bad bounce. And the 4th game was the Stars game. That was another penalty, by the way, by Chad. And those games just snowballed from there. 4 times in the last month that usually you should be able to get points. Imagine if the Penguins have gotten points in all 4 of those games. Even if they lost in overtime, even if they lost all 4 of those games in overtime, you take away 4 regulation losses from those games, you add them to the loser points, they would be, I'm making sure my math is right, sorry. They would be 5 points up on the Panthers right now, and they will be 3 points up on the Islanders with a game in hand. They've done this to themselves. They cannot play to save their lives in the late stages, in the halfway to late stages of the 3rd period, and it has really cost them this season. Because, it was great. The Penguins, they battled back to tie the game twice in the 3rd period against the league's best defensive team. You get a power play after the 3rd goal because Jim Montgomery decided to challenge that call from Gensel. That was not goalie interference. I don't see how that was at all. I don't know why people were saying it was. And you don't score on that. You then get a gift of a power play with 4:48 left. You don't score on that. And you're thinking, you're just going to get a point. Nope. David Pastrnak right there, 4-3. And yeah, I understand that people want, the goaltender to make a save in that situation, but that's also a rocket of a shot. I thought Tristan Jarry was mostly fine. He made a massive save before that when he dove across when the second unit was just barfing all over themselves trying to get the puck in the offensive zone, and then it was going back the other way. The Bruins almost scored short-handed. Just not good enough situational hockey in late game situations. And you saw that here. And you saw the other greatest hits. The penalty kill stunk. The power play stunk. Players can't finish. All the old hits. Special teams nuked another game. I thought the Penguins were fine at 5v5. I honestly thought as the game went on, it looked a bit rough at times. The Penguins were starting to skate with the Bruins and start to outplay them. They've played the Bruins very tough in all 3 games this season. They deserve better than I think than just a point in 3 games. I mean, even though this was without Bergeron and Linus Ullmark, but the Penguins definitely played well enough to get at least a point there. That's where I think if they make the playoffs, they'll be kicking themselves with that missed point and a lot of other missed points. And, also in the final 5 games, they play 3 of the worst teams in hockey. So I think they'll be kicking themselves if they don't get in regardless. But that one was just really frustrating because they let another one slip out of their grasp late in regulation. Just can't happen at this stage of the season. You can't be leaving points off the board, letting your guard up defensively and all that stuff. It's not good enough for me. So those are my I guess my main thoughts on the Bruins game. Look, I'll spend 30 seconds here on the Jim Montgomery statement. He likes to say, he was basically, I think it was mostly just gamesmanship where he was talking about the SID rules and the refs and all that. He's just saying it, I think, in case these 2 teams play in the playoffs, and there's a decent chance that they will if you look at the standings, of course. I would love to see the NHL actually protect its star players, Jim Montgomery, because the way you described it in your post-game answer, they do not. No. They don't protect Sidney Crosby. Connor McDavid went a whole playoff round just 2 seasons ago where there was not one penalty called on him. I think if I'm saying right, there was not one penalty called on another player that was hounding him on the ice. Sure. When Sidney Crosby was decapitated basically by Jacob Trouba in last year's playoffs, what happened? Crickets. Star players are not protected in this league. They never have been. So I don't know where he was going with that. They talk about the SID rules, comparing it to Michael Jordan. The funny thing is, the SID rules and the Jordan rules were nothing. The way he's describing it, they're not even comparable because the Jordan rules, I'm not even that big of a basketball person, but I know well enough when it was a series against, I believe, the Pistons, and it was all about the way, players were defending Jordan. It had nothing to do with, him getting preferential treatment by the refs. So those 2 situations are not even comparable. I don't even know what the heck he was talking about. Anyways, total gamesmanship from him. I don't know why he's even discussing that after his team just won the game and they're on the cusp of setting another NHL record. But hey, that's Boston sports for you, I think there. That really does it for the 2 games this weekend. 5 more games left. It's going to be a lot of fun. Coming up to end the show, we're going to touch on that playoff race, plus also preview the game against the New Jersey Devils on Tuesday and how the Penguins can get a result from that. But before we get to that, we do have to touch on Athletic Greens. Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking Athletic Greens because I didn't really have time in the morning to work out. I wanted more energy, better immune system. I don't really like taking pills in the morning. I used to do that as a kid. But you're probably wondering, what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of those things. So it's also lifestyle-friendly, whether you eat keto, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It also costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. And it's also recommended by numerous professional athletes and has over 7,000 5-star reviews. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. There's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. Right now, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin G and 5 free trial packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. shorts. All right, we're back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. You're going to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at NL Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So, Penguins Devils Tuesday night in Newark, the Rock, they call it the Prudential Center. This is a big week for this team. It's crunch time. There's 10 days left in the regular season. The schedule is favorable. The Penguins control their own destiny. This is not, the Islanders, even the Panthers. Penguins are in the driver's seat. I don't know how many more times I can make that clear. They have the game in hand on the Islanders. They're playing ahead of the Panthers. If they miss the playoffs, it is their own fault. That's how I see it. Especially with the last 3 games of the season against 3 teams who are not any good. But right now, this week, they have 2 big games starting on Tuesday. They go to New Jersey to take on the Devils, a team they've really struggled to play against this season. They only have 1 point in 3 games. They got blown out on home ice in the last matchup against them back in February. They should have probably beaten them in Newark the last time those 2 teams played there. Marcus Pettersson had a goal washed out in overtime. And the one before that, Penguins honestly could have won there too, where they had 9 power play opportunities and missed out on all 9 of them. The Devils play with a lot of speed. They're young. They have a lot of star power. They have a lot of good depth. They just give the Penguins fits. And they've been giving them fits for the last couple of seasons. The Devils come into this game. They got blown out by the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday, 6-1 loss. Lindy Ruff was not happy with his team. They're in a playoff. They're already in a playoff spot. They've already clinched their spot, actually. So, they're kind of just playing to see what seeding they're going to get at this point. But, at the top of the lineup, Tomas Tatar, Nico Hischier with Dawson Mercer, Andre Palat, who is back, Jack Hughes with Jesper Bratt. Very strong top 6 with Hischier and Hughes there. That's one of the best 1-2 punches, not just in the East, but around the league. Tatar can fill the net. Jesper Bratt's been awesome. Palat has been a good addition ever since he came back, from his injury. Hughes has 90 points. Hischier's a great 2-way force. They are going to be a very tough out in the playoffs. Timo Meier, the fact that he's playing on the 3rd line is just insane. But that just also goes to show how deep the Devils are when you have a player like Timo Meier, who would probably be on the top line right now with Crosby, or the 2nd line with Malkin. The fact that he's on the Devils' 3rd line goes to show how deep they are. Eric Holla with Jesper Boquist, Igor Sharangovich, who has been a top 6 stable for them. He's on the 4th line with Miles Wood and Michael McLeod. Defensively, Jonas Siegenthaler, Dougie Hamilton, Ryan Graves, Jean Marino, Kevin Ball with Damon Severson. Goaltending-wise, Vitek Vanacek and Mackenzie Blackwood, either one will start. It's probably going to be Vanacek, I would say. The only injuries they have are Jonathan Bernier and Curtis Lazar. This is a fully healthy team for the most part right now. When I look at this one, the Penguins they're obviously going to have to contain the Devils' speed. It gives them fits every time they play. I really want to see them play the similar game to how they played in the second game against the Devils, where they really limited the Devils' chances against at Newark. Hughes got the opening goal. The Penguins were able to tie it quickly after that. And then they were able to really shut down the Devils' attack for most of that, the rest of that game. The Penguins were the better team in Newark. They honestly could have won that game in overtime if Pettersson doesn't jump on a couple seconds early. He potentially scores that game winner, and it's not washed out. And that gave the Devils the power play in overtime, and they made no mistake. It's very hard to defend a 4-on-3 power play in overtime. I really want to see them get back to that kind of style. Defense first, your goalie plays well, limiting their chances against. The Penguins won the high danger battle in that game. They won the expected goals battle in that game. They just were not rewarded for their efforts. That was probably one of the more disappointing losses of the season because they outplayed them in that game. But in the other 2, no, the Penguins were, especially in the last one, the Penguins got brutally outplayed. They also had Dustin Tokarski in net. That's pretty hard. In the first one, I will say the Penguins, they had 9 power play opportunities. They had plenty of opportunities to win that game. They just weren't able to do it. But for this one, looking for the special teams to be better. You can't be having these games nuked by both units at this time of year. I want to see Tristan Jarry, if he starts, have another really good game. I want to see them tighten up defensively because I have the Devils' star power, and they also have strong depth. And I also want to see them play with that level of desperation. This game means so much more to the Penguins. The Devils, they're battling for home ice for whoever they're going to play against, whether it's the Hurricanes or the Rangers. It's probably going to be the Rangers. But this game doesn't mean that much to them. This game means so much more to the Penguins. I want to see that level of desperation. Show that you are in it to win it. Show that you want to be in the playoffs. This is going to be a very tough win. It's probably a tall task to ask them to win this game. But at the same time, you want to be in the playoffs. Show that you can beat one of these playoff teams. Penguins for a lot of parts of the season, they're 5-12-2 against some of these top teams in the conference / around the league. It's not good enough. 5 wins at 14 losses, not good enough at all. And the Penguins, that needs to change. I'll say this right now. If they can get a split of the 2 games this week against Minnesota and Minnesota and New Jersey, and then they can win those final 3 games against Detroit, Chicago, Columbus, they should be able to make the playoffs. 4-1, 4-0-1, that will definitely, I think, get them in. But if you drop a couple, if you drop both of these games, pressure is only going to be on you even more to win those final 3 games against teams that really have nothing to play for. And those are sometimes the hardest to win. Teams are playing for pride. They're playing spoiler, trying to knock you out with them. It can be hard sometimes. So the Penguins have an opportunity in front of themselves this week to really establish themselves as a playoff team, make sure they get in, maybe get in with a little bit of a cushion. Panthers schedule down the stretch. They have Buffalo on Tuesday. That's probably the biggest game for the Sabres in 12 years. The Senators, who are still not totally out of it yet, but it's close. The Capitals, who are basically all but out. And we got Toronto and Carolina, 2 teams that might be doing some roster management at that time. Islanders, they got Tampa Bay this week. Could be a loss. Then they got Washington, Montreal, and Philadelphia. They have 3 pretty gimme games there. But again, as I just said for the Penguins, sometimes those games are the hardest to win. Nothing is guaranteed right now. Penguins are really going to be put to the test these first couple of games this week. Again, in a perfect world, they win both of these games. And they maybe get a little bit of a cushion heading into those final 3 games, and they're still able to win those games against Detroit, Chicago, and Columbus. But I'm mainly looking for at least a split here. If you get 2 out of 4 points, heck, even 3 out of 4. Say you even lose one of these teams in overtime. It's not the end of the world. And you beat the other one, cool. Get 3 out of 4 points. That's huge. You win the final 3 games, 4-0-1. There you go. Can't drop both of them, though. You can't be relying just to beat those bad teams. The schedule favors the Penguins, but they can do themselves, more good than harm, to beat these 2 playoff teams this week. It starts on Tuesday against the Devils. Going to really be a really intriguing one to watch. Let's see if they can put together a really strong performance here before coming home to play a Wild team that I don't think is getting enough attention. They're playing some very good hockey without Kirill Kaprizov, but we'll touch on that later on this week. But again, thank you all so much for listening / watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be back with another episode on Tuesday to recap that game against the Devils. Let's see if they can get that win. Until then, hope you all have a great rest of your Monday. Talk to you all on Tuesday.